Michael Jordan finds out an elderly fan can't afford heating. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Michael Jordan's story didn't start in a gym or on a basketball court. It started in the small, quiet town of Wilmington, North Carolina, where he was born and raised. As a young child, Jordan's world wasn't filled with the glitz and glamour that would eventually follow him, nor was it packed with expectations from the outside world. He grew up in a household where the foundation for his success was built on values such as hard work, respect, and discipline. His family, particularly his parents, played a huge role in shaping his character. Michael was the fourth of 5 children. His father, James Jordan Sr., was a vital influence in his life. James wasn't just a father to Michael, he was a coach, a mentor, and a best friend. Despite the challenges that came with raising a family in a modest home, James Jordan found a way to instill in his children a strong sense of self-worth and work ethic. James would often remind Michael that anything worth achieving would take effort, and if he wanted something badly enough, he'd have to put in the hours to get it. But Michael wasn't just interested in sports, he was a kid who loved competition. Whether it was basketball, baseball, or just playing pickup games on the street, he was always ready to give his all. That competitive fire would be one of the key ingredients that led to his future greatness. However, things weren't always easy for him. As a freshman in high school, Jordan tried out for the varsity basketball team at Laney High School. He was cut from the team. This moment would define the young Michael Jordan. It was a blow to his pride, but it didn't break his spirit. Instead of giving up or walking away from basketball, he used this setback as fuel. He spent countless hours working on his game, practicing shots, improving his footwork, and refining his skills. By his sophomore year, Michael made the varsity team, and not only did he make the team, but he quickly became the star player. The rejection he faced early on became a driving force for him, and it wasn't just about basketball. It was about proving to himself that he could overcome obstacles and achieve greatness, no matter how many setbacks he faced. But basketball wasn't the only sport Michael excelled in. As a teenager, he was also a standout in baseball and football, and his talent in all 3 sports made him one of the most well-rounded athletes in his school. His natural ability on the field and court caught the attention of many recruiters, but it was his passion for basketball that began to truly take center stage. Michael knew that his future was in basketball, and though he had other options, he was focused on making it to the NBA. By the time Michael was in his junior year, his success in basketball had already earned him recognition. He was ranked among the top high school players in the country, and it became clear that college scouts were interested in recruiting him. Jordan's decision to attend the University of North Carolina was one that would forever change the course of his life. UNC, under legendary coach Dean Smith, was a program known for its discipline, teamwork, and strong foundation of fundamental basketball, qualities that would play a major role in shaping Jordan's game. Jordan's decision to attend UNC also provided him with the platform to prove himself as more than just an athlete. In his first season at Carolina, Jordan was already making an impact. His college coach, Dean Smith, wasn't focused solely on Michael's individual talent. He emphasized the importance of playing as part of a system, working with teammates, and being unselfish with the ball. Jordan had the raw talent to be a dominant scorer, but Coach Smith helped him understand that championships were won through teamwork and strategy. Jordan's defining moment at UNC came during the 1982 NCAA championship game, when he hit the game-winning shot as a freshman. With the game on the line, Jordan calmly sank a jumper that gave UNC the lead, securing the victory against the Georgetown Hoyas. That shot was the first of many clutch moments that Jordan would become known for, but it was also a symbol of the mental toughness that would be a hallmark of his career. Despite the success he experienced at UNC, Jordan's ambition had only begun to grow. He wasn't satisfied with just winning a college title, he wanted to be the best. He knew that the NBA was calling, and the next step was clear: enter the 1984 NBA draft. In 1984, the Chicago Bulls selected Michael Jordan with the 3rd overall pick. It was a moment that would forever alter the course of NBA history. The league was full of great players at the time. Names like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ruled the courts, but Jordan's arrival signaled a shift. He wasn't just coming into the NBA as a talented player, he was coming to change the game. The expectations were high, but so was his drive. Jordan's early years with the Bulls weren't easy. Though his talent was undeniable, the team around him was far from a championship contender. He was forced to carry the load almost entirely on his own, and while he was already one of the best players in the league, the Bulls struggled to put together a winning team. Despite his individual brilliance, Jordan found himself frustrated. He was tired of just being great, he wanted to win. But his first years in Chicago laid the foundation for his future success. As the league's top scorer and one of the most electrifying players in the game, Jordan quickly became the face of the NBA. His incredible athleticism, combined with his fierce competitive drive, made him a force on both ends of the court. But the real turning point in his career came when he realized that, in order to achieve greatness, he would need more than just individual talent. He would need teammates who could complement his skill set and a system that could help the Bulls reach their potential. The 1986-87 season marked Jordan's arrival as a leader. The Bulls added new pieces around him, including Scottie Pippen, who would become his co-star and longtime running mate. The chemistry between Jordan and Pippen was undeniable, and the two would go on to form one of the most dominant duos in NBA history. However, the challenge now wasn't just individual greatness, it was about bringing the team together and molding them into a championship contender. This transition was not smooth, and the Bulls faced significant setbacks, including a loss to the Boston Celtics in the 1986-87 playoffs. The Celtics, led by Larry Bird, were one of the greatest teams in NBA history, but Jordan's play during the series showed just how far he had come. His 63-point performance against Boston in the playoffs remains one of the most iconic individual games in NBA history, and though the Bulls lost, Jordan proved that he was no longer just the future of the league, he was the present. As Jordan continued to grow as a player and a leader, it became clear that the Bulls were on the brink of something special. But there was still a long road ahead before Jordan and the Bulls would achieve the success they so desperately wanted. What Jordan didn't realize at the time was that the challenges he faced in those early years would ultimately make him the greatest basketball player the world had ever seen. The road to championships, personal struggles, and setbacks were all part of what would mold Jordan into a living legend. And this was just the beginning. Michael Jordan's rise from a talented college athlete to an NBA superstar was not an overnight journey. His transition from college to the professional ranks was marked by challenges that would test not only his athletic abilities but his character as well. As he entered the NBA in 1984 with the Chicago Bulls, expectations were sky high. Yet, the road to greatness would not be without its setbacks and frustrations. Despite being drafted third overall by the Bulls in the 1984 NBA draft, Jordan's early years in the league were marked by a sense of individual accomplishment that contrasted with the struggles of his team. The Bulls were not a championship contender in those first years. Although Jordan was immediately one of the most dynamic players in the league, his team could not match his individual brilliance. The Bulls finished with mediocre records, and while Jordan was emerging as a top scorer, the team's inability to win playoff games left Jordan frustrated. He was scoring 30 or more points per game, dazzling fans with his skills and athleticism, but he yearned for something more, team success. The 1986-87 season was a breakthrough for Jordan, as he led the league in scoring with an average of 37.1 points per game. His ability to attack the basket, pull up for jump shots, and play with an intensity that was unmatched became his trademark. He also showcased his defense, earning all defensive team honors. Yet despite his statistical dominance, Jordan could not carry the Bulls to success on his own. The team was still far from being championship material. This gap between individual brilliance and team success would become one of the central themes of his career. The 1986-87 season was also the year that Jordan first encountered the team that would become his greatest obstacle, the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons, led by Isaiah Thomas and their Bad Boys defense, were a physical team known for their aggressive, no-holds-barred approach to basketball. The Pistons didn't just try to stop Jordan, they tried to wear him down, physically and mentally. The Jordan rules were established by Detroit, a defensive strategy designed specifically to neutralize Jordan. They would double-team him, often using rough tactics, pushing him off the ball, and making sure that whenever he drove to the basket, he was met with heavy contact. For Jordan, these battles were frustrating, but they also began to shape him into a more complete player. The Pistons defeated the Bulls in the 1988 Eastern Conference Finals in a grueling 7-game series. While Jordan played brilliantly, his individual brilliance wasn't enough to overcome the physical, team-oriented play of the Pistons. This loss was a bitter pill for Jordan, but it also served as a turning point in his career. For the first time, he realized that being the best individual player in the league wasn't enough. If he wanted to win championships, he would need more than just himself. He needed a team that could complement his skill set, that could help him get over the hump and finally dethrone the Pistons. That realization would shape Jordan's approach over the next few seasons. The 1988-89 season saw Jordan take his game to another level as he began to evolve from a one-dimensional scorer into a more well-rounded player. He developed a greater appreciation for defense, passing, and making his teammates better. Jordan began to trust his teammates more, which allowed the Bulls to become a more cohesive unit. This season also marked the arrival of Scottie Pippen, a versatile forward who would become Jordan's right-hand man. Pippen was not just an excellent defender, he was a player who could contribute on offense, handle the ball, and make plays. Their partnership would form the foundation of the Bulls' future success. Despite Jordan's growth as a player, the 1989 Eastern Conference Finals would once again feature the Bulls facing the Pistons. The series was another brutal test for Jordan, but this time, things were different. With Pippen and others stepping up, the Bulls were better equipped to challenge the Pistons. The series was incredibly physical, but the Bulls ultimately defeated the Pistons in 6 games, ending Detroit's reign as the Eastern Conference champions. The Bulls' victory over the Pistons was symbolic, not just because they had finally broken through, but because it marked the beginning of a new era for the team and for Jordan. The victory gave Jordan the confidence that he could, indeed, win championships, and it proved that the team-first approach was the right path. The 1991 Eastern Conference Finals victory also set the stage for Jordan's first NBA championship. After overcoming the Pistons, the Bulls were able to face the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals. The Lakers, led by Magic Johnson, were the reigning champions and the most successful team of the 1980s. However, the Bulls were now a team of destiny. With Jordan and Pippen leading the charge, the Bulls were more than ready to take on the challenge. Game 1 of the 1991 Finals set the tone for the series. Jordan, playing against one of his idols in Magic Johnson, was at his best. He scored 36 points in the game, leading the Bulls to a 108-105 victory. The performance was a statement. It was clear that Jordan was no longer just a player trying to break through. He was now the leader of a championship-caliber team, and he was on a mission. The Bulls would go on to win the 1991 NBA Finals in 5 games, securing their first-ever championship. Jordan was named Finals MVP, and his performance was one of the most dominant in NBA history. He not only proved that he could lead the Bulls to a title, but he also showed that he was the best player in the world. The victory over the Lakers marked a new beginning, not just for Jordan, but for the NBA. With Jordan at the forefront, the Bulls were set to become the dominant team of the 1990s. The 1991 championship was just the beginning. Jordan's victory was a culmination of everything he had worked for. It was the result of years of overcoming personal and professional obstacles. But it was also just the beginning of his journey. While the championship was sweet, Jordan knew that there was more to achieve. He wasn't content with just one title, he wanted more. He wanted to prove that he could not only win championships but lead the Chicago Bulls to a dynasty. The 1991 championship was the foundation of that legacy, but there was still much to accomplish. The victory also marked the turning point for Jordan as a leader. He had gone from being a player who relied solely on his scoring ability to a player who could elevate his teammates, trust them, and lead by example. The next challenge was clear: to repeat, to defend the championship, and to establish the Bulls as the team to beat. The road to that goal would not be easy, but Michael Jordan was ready for it. The next chapter of his career would solidify his place in history as not only the best player of his generation but the greatest of all time. The 1991-92 season was a pivotal year for Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Coming off their first NBA championship, the team faced both external and internal pressures. The Bulls were no longer a team of young, talented players hoping to make a mark. They were now the team to beat. Expectations were sky high, not only for Jordan but for the entire roster. The questions were no longer whether the Bulls could win, but whether they could maintain their success. The challenges of this season were more than just basketball. Jordan had to carry the weight of being the best in the world, a title that came with constant scrutiny, both on and off the court. The public's perception of him had shifted. He was no longer just a rising star, he was the face of the NBA, and everything he did was under the microscope. There was nowhere for Jordan to hide, and every misstep or failure was amplified. The constant pressure to perform at an elite level, every single night, was daunting. Yet, Jordan thrived under this weight. His competitive spirit became even more intense, driving him to work harder and improve aspects of his game that had already reached extraordinary heights. As the 1992 season began, Jordan and the Bulls were faced with the challenge of repeating as champions. Repeating in the NBA is often harder than winning a championship in the first place, as defending champions face the heightened expectations of every team in the league. Everyone wanted to knock the Bulls off their perch, and Jordan understood that his team had to be ready for this challenge. One of the most defining aspects of Jordan's career during this period was his growth as a leader. While his individual performance had always been exceptional, the 1991-92 season saw Jordan evolve from a dominant scorer to a more complete player. He became the center of the Bulls' offense, orchestrating plays, passing the ball, and involving his teammates. His incredible ability to score remained his most valuable asset, but Jordan had started to realize that in order to win championships consistently, he needed to elevate those around him. Scottie Pippen had emerged as one of the best all-around players in the league and was crucial to the Bulls' success. The chemistry between Jordan and Pippen grew even stronger during this time. Pippen's defense, playmaking, and ability to score allowed Jordan to focus on different aspects of his game. Jordan was still the go-to player, but he now had a co-pilot in Pippen, someone who could take over when needed and provide support in crucial moments. The Bulls' depth was also improved with the additions of key players such as Tony Kukoc and Steve Kerr, who were able to contribute when called upon. This made the team more dynamic and gave Jordan the confidence to trust his teammates. The 1992 season was not without its bumps, however. The Bulls had to deal with injuries and the challenge of staying focused throughout a long season. Despite the constant media attention and the physical toll of defending their title, the Bulls finished the regular season with a 67-15 record, the best in the NBA. However, the season was about more than just regular season success. The real test for Jordan and the Bulls would come in the playoffs, where they would face the toughest competition the league had to offer. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls faced the New York Knicks, a team built on physical defense and grit. The Knicks had been known for their aggressive style of play, and they were determined to knock the Bulls off their perch. The series was hard-fought, and the Knicks proved to be a formidable opponent. The games were brutal, with intense physicality and trash talk at every turn. But the Bulls, led by Jordan and Pippen, showed their resilience and were able to outlast the Knicks in a decisive 4-2 series victory. The 1992 NBA Finals marked the culmination of Jordan's development as a player and leader. The Bulls would meet the Portland Trail Blazers, led by Clyde Drexler, in the championship series. The Blazers were a talented and fast-paced team, and many believed they had the skills to challenge the Bulls. However, Jordan's focus and determination were unmatched. The finals would become a stage for Jordan to showcase his mastery of the game. Game 1 of the 1992 Finals was an early statement from Jordan. He scored 39 points, and the Bulls came away with a 122-89 victory. What was most notable about this performance was the way Jordan showcased his all-around game. He wasn't just scoring, he was passing, setting up teammates, and playing suffocating defense. The Bulls dominated the game, and it was clear that they were the superior team. However, Game 2 would prove to be a much tougher test. In Game 2, the Blazers came out firing, and the game was close throughout. Jordan, always poised in clutch moments, stepped up in the second half and delivered a performance that would go down in NBA history. Jordan made 6 three-pointers in the first half, shocking both his opponents and the fans. Known primarily as a slasher and mid-range shooter, Jordan's ability to stretch the floor with his shooting was something no one had expected. The game was a clear demonstration of Jordan's versatility, as he was willing to adapt his game to whatever was necessary to win. His confidence and poise in the face of such a competitive environment were unmatched. The Bulls won the game, and the series was now firmly in their control. The rest of the finals were more of the same. Jordan continued to display his dominance, and his ability to score at will, combined with his leadership, proved too much for the Blazers. Jordan went on to average 35.8 points per game in the finals and was named Finals MVP, the second of his career. The Bulls won the series 4-2, securing their second consecutive NBA championship. The Lakers fought hard, but by Game 5, the Bulls had secured their first-ever NBA championship, winning 108-105 to clinch the series 4-1. Jordan was named Finals MVP, and his performance was the crowning achievement of his career to that point. He had led the Bulls to the pinnacle of the NBA, and the victory marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. Jordan had arrived, not just as a superstar, but as the leader of an NBA dynasty. The 1991 championship was not just about winning the first title for the Bulls, it was about Michael Jordan proving that he was capable of leading his team to greatness. This was the moment that solidified his legacy as not just a great individual player, but as a champion. The Bulls were now a force to be reckoned with, and Jordan's impact was undeniable. His ability to take over a game, to lead his teammates, and to perform under pressure was a hallmark of his career, and it was what made him one of the greatest players the game had ever seen. But even as the champagne was being sprayed and the Bulls celebrated their first championship, Jordan knew that this was only the beginning. His hunger for success had not diminished. This title was the first step in what would become a dynasty, one that would redefine the NBA and leave an indelible mark on the sport. As the 1991-92 season unfolded, the Chicago Bulls were no longer just a team with a star player, they were a championship team with a strong supporting cast, a great coach in Phil Jackson, and a collective sense of purpose. Jordan was determined to lead the Bulls to more titles, and he knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger legacy. His competitive drive, his leadership, and his ability to elevate his teammates were all on display as the Bulls set their sights on their second consecutive title. The 1991-92 season saw the Bulls continue their dominance, finishing with a 67-15 record. They were a well-oiled machine, with Jordan at the helm, Pippen as his right-hand man, and a supporting cast that could fill in the gaps. The Bulls were once again a juggernaut, and the championship they had won in 1991 wasn't just a one-off, it was a statement that they were here to stay. The rise of the Bulls was, in many ways, a reflection of Jordan's growth as a player and a leader. He had gone from a young, individualistic scorer to the leader of a championship-caliber team. The lessons he had learned in the years leading up to this moment had shaped him into the player he was, and those lessons would continue to guide him as the Bulls began their run of dominance throughout the 1990s. As the 1992 NBA Finals loomed, Jordan knew that the road to another title would be difficult. The Portland Trail Blazers, led by Clyde Drexler, were an elite team in their own right. But Jordan, ever the competitor, was determined to prove that his Bulls were the best. The 1992 Finals, like the one before, would be another stage for Jordan to cement his legacy, and the world was watching. The 1991-92 season had been a triumph for Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, but as they entered the 1992-93 season, it was clear that they would be facing new challenges. Coming off their first back-to-back NBA championships, the pressure to maintain that success was immense. For Jordan, the weight of expectation was even heavier. The world expected more from him, and he was determined not to disappoint. But there was something else driving him that season, a fire that had grown even stronger. After winning his second consecutive MVP award in 1992, Jordan continued to prove that he was in a class of his own. He was the NBA's most dominant force, and the Bulls, as a team, were now considered the league's best. But as the regular season wore on, Jordan's intensity began to take a toll on him. Basketball had become more than just a game for him, it was his life. The pressures of being the best were starting to weigh heavily on his shoulders. He was already a champion, and yet, there was something within him that demanded more. He wanted to prove that he was capable of maintaining his level of dominance year after year. But this desire was beginning to consume him. The 1992-93 season also marked a turning point for Jordan in his personal life. Despite the external success and the championships, Michael was struggling with the loss of his father, James Jordan Sr., who had been tragically murdered in July 1993. The death of his father would have an immeasurable impact on Jordan, not just emotionally, but in the way he approached his game. James Jordan had always been his greatest supporter, his mentor, and his sounding board. His sudden death left a hole in Jordan's heart that no basketball game could fill. His grief, coupled with the mounting pressures of being the greatest player in the world, began to create an internal conflict that would change the trajectory of his career. As the season progressed, Jordan's focus began to waver. The toll of his father's death and the relentless pressure of being Michael Jordan weighed heavily on him. Basketball was no longer just a game, it was a reminder of everything he had lost. He began to feel the emotional weight of being the public figure that everyone wanted him to be. His father had always been there to support him, but now, in his absence, Jordan was forced to shoulder the burden alone. Despite the challenges, the Chicago Bulls were as strong as ever. With Jordan leading the way, the Bulls continued their dominance in the NBA. They finished the regular season with a 57-25 record, securing the top seed in the Eastern Conference. Jordan's scoring ability, combined with his leadership and his unrelenting drive, kept the Bulls at the top of the league. But as the team advanced to the playoffs, Jordan was beginning to realize that something needed to change. The pressure was too much, and he needed a break. The 1993 playoffs were once again a showcase for Jordan's brilliance. In the first round, the Bulls faced the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Jordan's legendary performance in Game 5 became one of the most iconic moments in NBA history. With the Bulls trailing by 1 point and just a few seconds left on the clock, Jordan took the ball, dribbled to the foul line, and hit a jumper over Craig Ello to win the game and clinch the series. This moment would forever be known as the shot, and it was a testament to Jordan's ability to perform when it mattered most. Despite the dramatic victory, Jordan was exhausted. The mental and emotional toll of the season had taken its toll, and by the time the Bulls reached the Eastern Conference Finals, Jordan was feeling the strain. They would face the New York Knicks, a team that was built to challenge the Bulls both physically and mentally. The Knicks were a tough, gritty team, and their defensive approach was designed to slow down Jordan and neutralize the Bulls' offense. In the series, Jordan found himself battling more than just the Knicks. He was battling his own emotions and doubts. As the series went on, it became clear that the Bulls weren't the same unstoppable force they had been in previous years. The Knicks' physical defense was wearing them down, and Jordan, despite his best efforts, couldn't carry the load alone. The series went to Game 7, a true test of character for both Jordan and the Bulls. But in the end, Jordan's willpower and leadership prevailed. The Bulls defeated the Knicks and advanced to the NBA Finals for the third consecutive year. The victory in the 1992 Finals solidified Jordan's legacy. Not only had he proven that his first championship wasn't a fluke, but he had also shown the world that he could carry a team to the top, not just through his scoring but through his leadership and unselfishness. The Bulls were no longer just a team with a great player, they were a dynasty in the making. But Jordan's success wasn't limited to just the NBA. His influence extended far beyond the basketball court. The Dream Team, the U.S. men's basketball team at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, saw Jordan alongside other NBA superstars like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Charles Barkley. The team dominated the competition, and Jordan's performance elevated the global profile of the sport. Jordan became a worldwide icon, transcending basketball and becoming a global ambassador for the sport. His impact off the court was as profound as his dominance on it. As the 1992-93 season unfolded, the Bulls were ready to defend their title. They had the experience, the depth, and, most importantly, the leadership of Michael Jordan. The next challenge would be to prove that their dynasty wasn't just a brief flash of greatness, it was something that could endure. For Jordan, the goal was clear: to continue winning, to continue leading, and to cement his place as the greatest basketball player of all time. The 1992 championship was just the beginning, and the world would soon learn that Michael Jordan had much more greatness in store for them. The 1992-93 season was expected to be a continuation of Michael Jordan's dominance in the NBA. The Chicago Bulls were coming off 2 consecutive championships, and Jordan's leadership was unquestionable. As the Bulls entered the new season, they knew the competition would be fierce, and Jordan was ready for the challenge. But this season would prove to be one of the most demanding of his career, not because of the competition, but because of the personal hurdles Jordan would have to overcome both on and off the court. Despite the Bulls' continued dominance in the regular season, winning 57 games and securing the best record in the Eastern Conference, things were beginning to weigh heavily on Jordan. His fierce competitive nature and the expectations surrounding him were taking their toll. The pressure to repeat as champions and maintain his individual excellence was beginning to chip away at him. On the court, Jordan's intensity remained unmatched. He was playing with the same fire that had led him to 5 MVP awards and back-to-back championships. He was scoring at will, leading the league once again in points, and his defense was suffocating. Yet, even as he performed at his peak, there was a sense that something was missing. Jordan's personal life was becoming increasingly complicated. The weight of being the best in the world was a heavy burden, and the constant media scrutiny had become difficult for him to handle. Off the court, Jordan was feeling the strain of being in the public eye at all times. As the face of the NBA, the expectations on him to win, to perform, and to represent the league in the best light were relentless. It wasn't just about basketball anymore, it was about his life, his reputation, and the persona that had been created for him. His every move was dissected, analyzed, and scrutinized. The tipping point came with the tragic death of Michael Jordan's father, James Jordan Sr., in July 1993. James Jordan was not just Michael's father, he was his mentor, his confidant, and his biggest supporter. The sudden and brutal loss of his father rocked Michael to his core. The grief he felt was overwhelming, and the realization that his father, who had been there every step of the way throughout his career, was no longer around to share in his success, was devastating. The personal and emotional toll of this loss was undeniable, and it led Michael to make the difficult decision to step away from basketball. Jordan's first retirement in 1993 shocked the world. At the peak of his career, with the Chicago Bulls having won 3 consecutive championships, Michael Jordan walked away from the game. The reasons for his retirement were not just about the loss of his father, although that was a significant factor. The constant pressure, the media scrutiny, and the wear of being in the spotlight for so long were wearing him down. He had achieved everything he set out to do in basketball, and for the first time in his career, he wanted a break. In the wake of his retirement, Jordan took a surprising step. He decided to pursue a career in baseball. Baseball had always been a sport his father loved, and after his father's death, Michael sought solace in the game. He signed a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox and was assigned to play for the Birmingham Barons, a Double-A affiliate. It was an unusual move for a man who had reached the pinnacle of one sport to step away and try his hand at another, especially one where he had not played since his youth. Despite his hard work and natural athletic ability, his time in baseball was far from a success. Jordan batted just .202 with 3 home runs and 51 RBIs in his single season with the Barons. Yet, his experience in baseball gave him a different perspective on his life, career, and the world outside of basketball. Despite the challenges he faced on the baseball field, Jordan's love for competition and his relentless work ethic remained unchanged. He approached baseball with the same drive that had defined his basketball career. While he was far from a major league caliber player, the lessons he learned in baseball, particularly the importance of patience, failure, and dealing with adversity, would serve him well when he eventually decided to return to basketball. But during his time away, the NBA, and specifically the Chicago Bulls, had to move on without him. In his absence, the Bulls were still a talented team. With players like Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant stepping up, the team remained competitive, but there was a void without Jordan. While Pippen blossomed into a more prominent role, the Bulls could not replicate the same level of dominance they had when Jordan was on the court. The 1993-94 season saw the Bulls struggle in the playoffs, falling to the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference semifinals. It was a humbling experience for the team and made it clear that, no matter how good Pippen and others were, the Bulls still needed Jordan to reach their full potential. Jordan's decision to return to the NBA in March 1995 was one of the most dramatic moments in sports history. After less than 2 years away from the game, he was back, and his announcement, "I'm back," sent shockwaves through the sports world. The public's reaction was a mixture of excitement and skepticism. Could Jordan still be the same player? Had the time away from the game affected him? These were questions that hung over his return. But Michael Jordan, ever the competitor, was not concerned with proving people wrong. He was more focused on reclaiming what was rightfully his, the chance to lead the Chicago Bulls to another championship. Jordan's first game back was against the Indiana Pacers, and while his performance wasn't the explosive return many had hoped for, he showed enough to reassure everyone that he was still Michael Jordan. He scored 19 points, and the energy around the United Center was palpable. But despite his return, the Bulls did not win that game. Jordan's return wasn't going to be easy, and his teammates, while talented, still had to get used to having him back. The team had to work through the transition of reintegrating Jordan into the system and balancing his leadership with the other strong personalities in the locker room. As the season progressed, Jordan's game slowly returned to its former brilliance. He was no longer the player who could carry a team through every game, but his leadership, basketball IQ, and ability to perform under pressure remained as strong as ever. The Bulls went on to finish the regular season with a 47-35 record, and they made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals. But it wasn't until the 1995-96 season that the team truly clicked. Jordan was back in peak form, and with him leading the charge, the Bulls would go on to win 72 games that season, the best record in NBA history at the time. Jordan's return wasn't just about reclaiming his place at the top, it was about showing the world that he could overcome any adversity, personal or professional. His brief retirement had given him a new perspective on life and basketball, and when he came back, he was more focused and determined than ever. But the pressure that came with that return was immense, and Jordan faced it head-on. His competitive drive pushed him, and his leadership guided the Bulls back to greatness. The 1995-96 season would not only define his return, it would be the beginning of a new dynasty for the Chicago Bulls. Jordan's resilience in the face of adversity, both personal and professional, proved that his legacy wasn't just about basketball, it was about perseverance, the will to win, and the refusal to be defeated by any obstacle. As Michael Jordan returned to the NBA, he did so with a single goal in mind, to win. After his brief but transformative retirement, the basketball world was eager to see if he could return to the level of dominance that he had once achieved. With a new sense of purpose and a revitalized mindset, Jordan's comeback wasn't just about proving his doubters wrong, it was about proving to himself that he could still accomplish what he set out to do, lead his team to the pinnacle of the sport, again and again. The 1995-96 season marked the beginning of the second phase of the Bulls dynasty. Although Jordan had returned to the team late in the previous season, the team wasn't firing on all cylinders yet. But in the 1995-96 season, everything clicked. The Bulls finished with a remarkable 72-10 record, the best in NBA history at that time. With Jordan back at the helm, the team quickly became a well-oiled machine, blending experience with fresh energy. The addition of key players like Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, and Ron Harper bolstered the roster and made the team more versatile than ever. This was a season where Jordan wasn't just playing for the championship, but for something more significant, his legacy. The competitive fire in Jordan was unrelenting. There was an urgency in his game, a burning desire to prove that not only was he the best player in the NBA, but that he could elevate his team to the level of greatness they had reached before. As the season unfolded, it became clear that Jordan had found a new rhythm. He had regained the edge that made him untouchable, but now, he was even more patient with the game, involving his teammates more than ever. His leadership was different this time, more refined, more inclusive, and yet just as dominant. Despite his evolution as a leader, Jordan's scoring ability remained the focal point of the Bulls' offense. By the time the playoffs arrived, it was clear that the championship was within reach. The Eastern Conference didn't stand much of a chance against the Bulls' powerful and balanced attack. In the first round of the playoffs, the Bulls swept the Miami Heat 3-0. Jordan averaged over 30 points per game, and the Heat simply had no answer for his brilliance. The Bulls were firing on all cylinders, with Jordan's scoring, Pippen's defense and playmaking, and the support from role players like Kerr and Kukoc pushing the team forward. In the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Bulls faced the New York Knicks, another tough, physical team that would give them a much harder challenge. The Knicks, led by the fierce and competitive Patrick Ewing, were a team built to withstand the grind of the playoffs, and they came at the Bulls with everything they had. The series went to 5 games, but Chicago's firepower proved too much. Jordan led the charge once again, and with his leadership, the Bulls were able to dispatch the Knicks 4-1, earning a spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. This time, their opponents would be the Orlando Magic. The Magic were a young and exciting team, with future Hall of Famers Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway leading the charge. Orlando had made a statement by ousting the Boston Celtics in the first round, and they posed a real threat to the Bulls' hopes of a repeat. This series would come with its own set of challenges. Orlando had the size, speed, and athleticism to match the Bulls, and their high-powered offense presented a difficult test for the Bulls' defense. However, Jordan and Pippen were in their prime, and the two of them had learned how to execute when it mattered most. In a tough and intense series, the Bulls swept the Magic 4-0. Despite Orlando's formidable talent, they couldn't match the experience and poise of Chicago's core. Jordan's performance in the finals was nothing short of remarkable. He was back to his old self, taking over games and proving that his greatness had not faded with time. Now, with the finals once again in sight, the Chicago Bulls were poised for greatness. They had already shown the world that their previous championship run was no fluke. Jordan's leadership had brought the team back to the mountaintop, and now, the stage was set for their most difficult challenge yet, the Seattle Supersonics. Seattle, led by the sharpshooting Gary Payton and the powerful Shawn Kemp, had been one of the most consistent teams in the league during the regular season. They had a solid defense and were one of the most dynamic teams on offense, making them formidable contenders in the NBA Finals. The 1996 NBA Finals began with much anticipation. The Supersonics were a tough, physical team, but the Bulls were riding high on momentum and confidence. Despite Seattle's defensive efforts, Jordan quickly established his dominance, showing that he was still the best player in the world. In Game 1, the Bulls won decisively, with Jordan scoring 27 points and Pippen contributing on both ends of the court. In Game 2, the Supersonics mounted a strong challenge, but Chicago responded with their depth and cohesion, winning 92-88. Jordan had regained his form, but now it was clear that the team around him was just as crucial to the Bulls' success. As the series continued, the Supersonics found it increasingly difficult to contain Chicago's offense. Jordan was scoring at will, and the combination of his scoring ability, Pippen's defensive prowess, and the Bulls' all-around team play made them nearly impossible to beat. Even when the Supersonics fought back, Chicago's experience, both as a team and individually, was evident. Jordan's performance in the finals was stellar. He averaged 27.3 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per game. Game 6 of the finals proved to be the climax of the series. The Bulls had a 3-2 lead, and it was time to close out the Supersonics on their home court. With a dominant performance, the Bulls won 87-75, clinching their 4th NBA championship and Jordan's 4th Finals MVP award. Jordan's final performance in the series was a demonstration of his leadership and his ability to perform when it mattered most. His 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists in Game 6 showed his all-around game, but it was his poise and his leadership that stood out. The Bulls had accomplished what they set out to do, win another championship. Jordan's return to the top was complete, and the team had proved that their success wasn't a one-time affair. The 1996 championship was not only a validation of Jordan's ability to lead but also a statement that the Bulls dynasty was far from over. With the team firing on all cylinders, they had proven that they were the most dominant force in the NBA, with Jordan leading the charge. For Jordan, winning the 1996 NBA championship wasn't just about securing another title, it was about reclaiming his spot as the greatest basketball player in the world. His comeback had been about more than just physical recovery, it was about proving that his hunger for success had never faded. The 1996 championship was a testament to his resilience, his leadership, and his ability to rise to the occasion when the pressure was at its highest. With this title, Jordan had re-established the Chicago Bulls as the most dominant team in the NBA. The dynasty was now firmly in place, and Jordan had once again shown the world what he was capable of. But even as he celebrated the championship, Jordan knew that this wasn't the end of his journey. He was already looking toward the next challenge, the next step in what would become one of the most storied careers in basketball history. The 1996 season had proven that Michael Jordan was back, and the world would soon learn that his pursuit of greatness would continue to redefine what it meant to be a champion. The 1997-98 NBA season marked the final chapter of the Chicago Bulls dynasty, and for Michael Jordan, it would be his swan song. Jordan, already cemented as one of the greatest players in NBA history, was poised to lead the Bulls to one final championship. But this season would be different. It was not just about basketball anymore. The media attention, the internal team dynamics, and the personal toll of trying to reach the summit once again weighed heavily on him. It was clear that the team's legacy, and Jordan's place within that legacy, would be defined in this season. And for Jordan, it was about more than just basketball. The world was watching, and he knew it. The 1997-98 season had started with uncertainty hanging in the air. Michael Jordan was not the same 25-year-old player he had been when he first entered the league. At 35, Jordan was still playing at an incredibly high level, but the physical toll of his career, combined with the emotional and mental strain of carrying the weight of his legacy, was becoming apparent. The Bulls were in a unique situation. The team was primed to defend their fifth championship, but everything was hanging by a thread. Coach Phil Jackson, who had led the team to 5 titles, was in the final year of his contract and was likely leaving after the season. General manager Jerry Krause had already made it clear that the Bulls were going to be dismantled after the season, regardless of the outcome. This uncertainty hung over the entire organization. Jordan's frustration with Krause, along with his own internal struggles, made it clear that this season would be unlike any other. Despite all of this, Jordan remained focused on the task at hand. He was more determined than ever to win one final championship for the Bulls and to solidify his place as the greatest player in NBA history. Jordan's leadership during this time was more than just his on-court performance, it was about bringing the team together under the pressure of constant media scrutiny. The public's expectations were through the roof, and the pressure of knowing that this was the final year of an era was something Jordan never let slip into his mind. He took charge, making sure his teammates were ready for each game, as if the weight of the season was on his shoulders alone. And in many ways, it was. As the season progressed, Jordan's performance never wavered. He played in 82 games, maintaining an average of 28.7 points per game, proving that he was still an offensive powerhouse. His defense remained elite, and he continued to show the world that, even in his 30s, he could still dominate the game. His leadership on the court was infectious. Players like Scottie Pippen, Ron Harper, and Steve Kerr knew that they could rely on Jordan when the stakes were highest. The chemistry between Jordan and Pippen had reached a point of near perfection. Their trust in each other was the cornerstone of the Bulls' success. But even as the team played well, there were undercurrents of change. There were tensions behind the scenes. Krause had made it clear that he was ready to start rebuilding the team, and while he was willing to keep the core together for one last run, it was clear that the Bulls' championship window was closing. Jackson had already made plans to leave after the season, regardless of the outcome. Jordan was, understandably, frustrated with Krause's decision to break up the team, but he refused to let it affect his focus. He was driven by a singular goal: win the championship and prove that, even after all the obstacles, he was still the best. The Bulls entered the 1998 playoffs with the same intensity and focus they had in previous years, but this time, they carried a sense of finality. Jordan was playing his final season with the Bulls, and the stakes had never been higher. Their first-round matchup with the New Jersey Nets was relatively easy. The Bulls swept the Nets 3-0, with Jordan continuing to lead the charge, averaging 29 points per game. But the real test would come in the next round, where the Bulls would face a much tougher opponent, the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets, led by Alonzo Mourning, were an emerging powerhouse in the Eastern Conference, and they presented a significant challenge to the Bulls. They were big, physical, and had a solid defensive scheme. However, despite their efforts, Jordan's brilliance once again shone through. The series went to 4 games, but the Bulls prevailed, with Jordan playing key roles in each victory. It was clear that Jordan's leadership was more important than ever, and despite the challenges he faced, his competitive drive pushed the team to the finals. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bulls would face the Indiana Pacers, a team led by the sharpshooting Reggie Miller. The Pacers were one of the best teams in the East, and many believed they could challenge the Bulls. The series was a grueling, back-and-forth affair, with both teams playing at a high level. But once again, Michael Jordan proved that when the game was on the line, he could deliver. The series went to 7 games, with the Pacers making it clear that they would not be intimidated by the defending champions. However, in the end, it was Jordan who stood tall. In Game 7, he scored 28 points, leading the Bulls to an 88-83 victory, and securing a spot in the NBA Finals for the 6th time in his career. As the finals approached, the Bulls were facing a familiar opponent, the Utah Jazz. The Jazz, led by the MVP Karl Malone and the clutch shooting of John Stockton, had been knocking on the door of an NBA championship for years. They were a talented team, but many believed they were no match for the Bulls in their final run. The stage was set for one of the most iconic finals in NBA history. Game 1 of the finals saw Jordan and the Bulls dominate the Jazz in a commanding 84-82 victory. Jordan's performance was a reminder to the world of his unparalleled ability to control a game, even against a talented team like Utah. In the following games, the series became a battle of wills. The Jazz fought hard, but the Bulls' defense, led by Jordan, was too much for them. Despite battling a sore ankle and the weight of the season, Jordan continued to deliver. Game 5 became one of the most memorable in NBA history, as Jordan, battling through fatigue and pain, scored 38 points to lead the Bulls to a crucial victory. But it was Game 6 that would solidify Jordan's legacy forever. With the Bulls leading the series 3-2, Game 6 was the decisive moment. With the score tied and time winding down, Jordan received the ball at the top of the key, sizing up his defender, Bryon Russell. With a quick step back, Jordan created just enough space and sank a jumper, giving the Bulls an 87-86 lead with 5.2 seconds left. The shot, now known as the last shot, was a fitting end to an extraordinary career. Jordan had once again proven that, when it mattered most, he was the best. The Bulls won the game, clinching their 6th NBA championship, and Jordan was named Finals MVP for the 6th time in his career. As he stood on the podium, holding the trophy one last time, Jordan knew that this was the end of an era. The 1998 NBA championship was not just another title, it was the culmination of a remarkable career and the final chapter of a dynasty that would never be forgotten. For Jordan, this victory meant more than just another championship. It was the conclusion of a journey that had begun nearly 15 years earlier in the streets of Wilmington, North Carolina. The journey had been filled with triumphs, heartbreaks, challenges, and growth. But through it all, Michael Jordan had remained committed to one thing: winning. He had led the Chicago Bulls to 6 championships, cementing his place as the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. As he walked off the court for the final time with the Bulls, Jordan knew that his legacy had been secured. His greatness was unquestioned, and his impact on the game of basketball would last for generations to come. Michael Jordan's decision to retire for the second time in 1999 was one of the most iconic moments in sports history. He had just led the Chicago Bulls to their sixth NBA championship and, in many ways, had proven every doubter wrong. His return to basketball after a brief stint in baseball had resulted in 3 more championships, and by the time Jordan announced his retirement, he had achieved everything he could have dreamed of. But this time, his retirement was final, at least that's what he thought. The basketball world, still reeling from his departure, was left wondering what would happen next. Jordan's influence, both on and off the court, had transcended the sport. His competitive nature, his unmatched ability to perform in the clutch, and his leadership had set a new standard for future generations of athletes. Yet, as Jordan walked away from the NBA for a second time, the question lingered, could the game continue without him? Jordan's time away from the game marked a period of reflection. His life, no longer consumed by the grind of professional basketball, gave him a chance to focus on his family and business ventures. He became a successful businessman, involved in numerous endorsement deals and the owner of a portion of the Charlotte Hornets, an NBA team. Jordan's off-court impact, however, was just as powerful as his on-court influence. He became the face of Nike, and his Air Jordan brand continued to shape the sneaker culture and basketball fashion for years to come. Despite his departure from the court, Michael Jordan was far from forgotten. His legacy was alive and well, influencing a new generation of players and fans. For many, the idea of Jordan playing basketball again seemed like a distant memory, something that had happened long ago. But for Jordan, the fire to compete never truly went out. His competitive spirit was a defining trait throughout his career, and even in retirement, he remained involved in the game, mentoring young players and staying connected to the world he had dominated. Despite the success he had achieved, there was still an itch that needed to be scratched. Basketball had been his life for so long that leaving it behind entirely seemed impossible. The hunger to compete was still there, even as time moved on. In 2001, the basketball world was stunned when Michael Jordan made his decision to return to the NBA once again, this time with the Washington Wizards. The decision was met with mixed reactions. While fans were excited to see the return of the greatest player in the game, there were many questions about whether Jordan could still compete at the level he once had. He was now 38 years old, well past the prime of his career. Could he still be the dominant force he once was? And what would it mean for his legacy to return to a team that wasn't a championship contender? Jordan's return to the NBA was marked by a different set of circumstances. Unlike his first years in Chicago, when he was the undisputed best player in the league, his time with the Washington Wizards was about more than just playing basketball. It was about redefining his role in the game. Jordan had already proven that he was the greatest player in NBA history. But now, he was coming back to a team that was rebuilding and struggling to regain its place in the league. The Washington Wizards were far from championship contenders. However, Jordan brought with him the same leadership and drive that had made him a 6-time NBA champion. And despite the physical challenges that came with his age, Jordan was still able to showcase his incredible skills. The 2001-2002 season saw Jordan average 22.9 points per game, a remarkable feat for a player at his age. His scoring ability, while not quite at the level of his peak years with the Bulls, was still a potent weapon. More importantly, Jordan's presence on the court brought a sense of discipline, focus, and leadership that the Wizards desperately needed. His impact was not just seen in his individual statistics, but in the way he elevated the play of his teammates. He helped guide the Wizards back into the playoffs, a significant achievement considering where the team had been just a few years earlier. Despite his success on the court, the 2001-2002 season also marked the beginning of the end for Jordan's career. Injuries, particularly to his knee and ankle, started to take their toll on his body. He had been known for his endurance, his ability to perform at a high level day in and day out, but Father Time was catching up with him. As much as he wanted to continue playing, the physical demands of the NBA were beginning to wear him down. The 2002-2003 season would be Jordan's final season in the NBA. At 40 years old, Jordan was no longer the dominant force he had once been, but he was still capable of brilliance. He played in 82 games that season, averaging 20 points per game, and his leadership continued to be invaluable. While the Wizards didn't make much of an impact in the playoffs, Jordan's influence was still felt across the league. He had come back to the game not for personal glory, but to prove to himself, and to others, that he still had something to offer. That final season was a testament to Jordan's resilience and his love for the game of basketball. When Jordan officially announced his retirement after the 2002-2003 season, it was a moment of reflection. His second stint with the Wizards hadn't resulted in a championship, but it didn't matter. He had already done enough to secure his place as the greatest basketball player of all time. His 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and numerous accolades were more than enough to solidify his legacy. But it was his competitive fire, his ability to win in the most pressure-filled moments, and his influence on the game that would be his lasting impact. As the years passed, Michael Jordan's influence only grew. He became an ambassador for the game of basketball, mentoring young players, especially those who grew up watching him dominate the sport. His impact extended beyond the court. His ventures in business, including his continued success with Nike and his ownership of the Charlotte Hornets, made him one of the most influential athletes in history. Jordan was not just a basketball player, he was a cultural icon, one whose influence was felt across industries and around the world. Looking back on his career, Michael Jordan's legacy is one of greatness, not just in his on-court achievements but in his ability to inspire and elevate those around him. He was the epitome of what it meant to be a champion, a relentless competitor who always sought to be the best. His leadership and commitment to excellence changed the way basketball was played and viewed. Jordan's return to the game, both in 1995 and later in 2001, was about more than just basketball. It was about showing that the desire to compete never truly dies, that even in the face of obstacles, greatness can always find a way. Michael Jordan may have retired from basketball for good after the 2002-2003 season, but his legacy continues to shape the game. His name will forever be associated with excellence, leadership, and winning. Whether on the court, in the locker room, or in the business world, Jordan has left a lasting mark on everything he touched. His story is not just one of athletic achievement but of how one individual can change the course of history. Michael Jordan's impact, in the world of basketball and beyond, is eternal. Michael Jordan's second retirement in 1999 was meant to be the end of an era. After 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, and countless accolades, he had proven everything there was to prove in basketball. His final shot, the one that secured his 6th NBA title in 1998 with the Chicago Bulls, had already cemented his legacy as the greatest player the sport had ever seen. But as the years passed, it became clear that Jordan's impact wasn't confined to just his playing career. His influence on the game, on culture, and on the world at large continued to grow, shaping the future of the sport in ways no one could have imagined. In retirement, Jordan found himself transitioning into new roles. His passion for basketball remained, but it was no longer just about playing, it was about giving back. His presence in the NBA was still felt through his involvement in various projects, including his ownership stake in the Charlotte Hornets, his work with Nike, and his continued support for younger players. Jordan was now an ambassador for the game, mentoring the next generation and offering insight into what it took to succeed at the highest level. But it wasn't just basketball where Jordan left his mark. His Air Jordan brand, which began as a partnership with Nike, became a global phenomenon. The iconic sneakers, synonymous with style, innovation, and success, helped shape the culture surrounding the NBA and sports in general. It wasn't just about the shoes, it was about what they represented. Jordan's success, his work ethic, and his relentless drive to win had transcended the basketball court. The Air Jordan brand became a symbol of excellence, ambition, and the pursuit of greatness. As Jordan continued his work off the court, his legacy was further solidified in ways that had little to do with basketball statistics or trophies. His success helped inspire a new generation of athletes, particularly in basketball, where he became the standard by which all others were measured. Players like Kobe Bryant and LeBron James openly credited Jordan for their own careers, mimicking his style and studying his approach to the game. They, too, wanted to be more than just athletes. They wanted to inspire, to elevate the sport, and to build legacies that would stand the test of time. But even as Jordan mentored younger players and guided the evolution of basketball, there was always a sense of something unfinished. Jordan, in his heart, was still a competitor. Basketball, for him, wasn't just a game, it was a way of life. While his time on the court had ended, his connection to the game never truly faded. This connection would come to a head once again in 2001 when Jordan made the decision to return to the NBA for a second time, this time with the Washington Wizards. At 38 years old, many believed his best years were behind him. But for Jordan, this return wasn't about proving his greatness again, it was about doing it for himself. He had nothing left to prove to anyone. He had already established his place as the greatest to ever play the game. But his love for basketball, his drive to compete, and his desire to continue impacting the game were still there. Jordan's time with the Wizards was less about chasing championships and more about proving to himself that he could still compete at the highest level. His stats weren't the same as in his prime with the Bulls, but his leadership remained invaluable. He averaged 22.9 points per game in his first season with the Wizards, showing that he could still put up solid numbers even at an age when most players are well into their decline. But more than just the points, his influence on the court was evident. He helped elevate the play of his teammates, especially young players like Gilbert Arenas and Jerry Stackhouse. His competitive spirit and basketball IQ were as sharp as ever, and he played with the same intensity that had defined his career. Even in his final season, Jordan's love for the game never wavered. Despite the wear and tear on his body, he played through injuries, giving everything he had. His second stint with the Wizards wasn't filled with the same level of team success that his time with the Bulls had seen, but Jordan's ability to remain relevant in the NBA, despite his age and the passing of time, spoke volumes about his legacy. He was no longer just the greatest player in the game, he had become a symbol of resilience, of overcoming obstacles, and of staying committed to greatness long after the glory had faded. When Jordan retired for the second time in 2003, it was a quieter exit than his first. There were no confetti showers or celebratory parades, just a simple acknowledgement that his time had come. Jordan's departure from the game was no longer about the impact he could have on the court, it was about the mark he had already left. He had achieved everything possible in basketball, and his contributions to the sport had created a lasting legacy. His second retirement wasn't just the end of his career, it was the beginning of the final phase of his impact on basketball and beyond. In the years following his second retirement, Michael Jordan's legacy only grew. His role as an owner of the Charlotte Hornets allowed him to stay involved in the game, shaping the future of the NBA in a different capacity. Jordan's impact was no longer measured solely in championships or points per game, it was measured in the way he changed the culture of basketball, and the way he inspired countless athletes to strive for excellence, and in the way his name became synonymous with success. In 2009, Jordan was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. His induction speech was a moment of reflection for the basketball world. Jordan, ever humble in his acknowledgement of his accomplishments, spoke not just about his individual success, but about the teammates, coaches, and individuals who helped him along the way. He thanked his family, his coaches, and his teammates for their contributions to his career. But he also spoke candidly about the pressure he had felt, the challenges he had faced, and the sacrifices he had made to reach the pinnacle of his sport. Jordan's words underscored a central theme of his career: the journey was just as important as the destination. Jordan's influence reached beyond the world of basketball. He became a global ambassador for the sport and one of the most recognizable athletes in history. He revolutionized sports marketing, particularly through his partnership with Nike and the Air Jordan brand, which continues to be one of the most successful sneaker lines in history. Jordan's impact on fashion, business, and culture has been immeasurable. He is not just remembered as a basketball player, but as a cultural icon who shaped the way athletes are perceived and how they can leverage their platform for business success. But what stands out most about Michael Jordan is the legacy he left in the hearts and minds of fans and players alike. He is the epitome of excellence, the person every player strives to emulate. His commitment to winning, his leadership, his ability to perform under pressure, and his unwavering belief in himself changed the way basketball is played and appreciated. His 6 championships, 5 MVPs, and countless records are a testament to his greatness, but it's the impact he had on the game and the culture that truly defines his legacy. As the years pass and new generations of players emerge, Michael Jordan remains the gold standard. The next greats, from Kobe Bryant to LeBron James, have taken inspiration from his career. But Jordan's impact goes beyond just basketball. He showed the world that greatness comes from hard work, dedication, and an unrelenting pursuit of excellence. His legacy will continue to inspire athletes across all sports for generations to come. Michael Jordan is not just a basketball player. He is a symbol of what can be achieved when you commit yourself to something wholeheartedly. His story is one of triumph, resilience, and greatness, a story that will forever be etched in the annals of sports history. The journey that began in Wilmington, North Carolina, ended with a legacy that transcended basketball and left an indelible mark on the world. The greatest basketball player of all time had long since earned his place in history, but it's what he gave to the world, his passion, his drive, and his influence, that will endure for all time.